You think you're tired because you work too much. You think you're anxious because life is hard. You think you're empty because you're not trying hard enough. Wrong. There's someone draining you right now, today. And the reason you haven't stopped them yet is because they don't look dangerous. They look normal. Some of them look like the best people in your life. But here's what. That's actually happening. Every conversation with them costs you something. Every interaction leaves you a little more hollow. Every time you pick up the phone, check that message, agree to meet up, you're making a transaction. You're trading pieces of yourself for nothing. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're not losing your mind. You're being fed poison in small enough doses that you don't notice you're dying. The human brain can't detect slow deterioration. That's why you don't realize your confidence disappeared. That's why you can't pinpoint when you stop believing in yourself. That's why one day you wake up and think, when did I become this person? The answer is simple. You became this person the day you let someone else define your reality. And today, that ends. There's a specific kind of psychological violation that doesn't leave bruises. It happens. When someone rewrites what just occurred right in front of you, you know what was said? You know what happened? But 5 minutes later, you're standing there questioning your own memory like a witness being cross-examined by a lawyer who's better at lying than you are, remembering this isn't miscommunication. This is warfare. When someone tells you that never happened about something you both know occurred, they're not confused. They're installing doubt. They're placing a virus in your operating system. Every time they do this successfully, they gain a little more control over what you believe is real. Here's the mechanism. Your brain relies on consensus reality. When someone confidently contradicts your experience, your mind does a calculation. It weighs your memory against their certainty. And if this happens repeatedly, your brain starts defaulting to their version because certainty feels safer than doubt. That's the trap. You start editing your own perceptions before you even speak them. You start sentences with maybe I'm wrong, but you apologize for feelings you didn't choose to have. You become an unreliable narrator of your own life. The person doing this knows exactly what they're doing. Some learned it from their parents. Some discovered it works and kept using it. But make no mistake, this is a choice. They choose to deny. They choose to flip the script. They choose to make you feel insane rather than admit they caused harm. Every time you accept their version of events, you're not keeping the peace. You're surrendering your grip on reality itself. Think about what this costs you long term. You stop trusting your judgment in other areas. You second-guess decisions at work. You can't tell if that person was actually rude or if you're being too sensitive again. You lose the ability to advocate for yourself because you're never quite sure if your complaint is legitimate. This creates a specific type of psychological dependence. You need them to validate your reality because you've lost the ability to validate it yourself. You check in with them before forming opinions. You ask permission to feel hurt. You've essentially outsourced your internal compass to someone who keeps pointing you in the wrong direction. The worst part, other people can't see this happening. To the outside world, everything looks normal. You're not being hit. You're not being screamed at. You're just having communication issues. But behind closed doors, your sense of self is being dismantled one contradiction at a time. Here's how. You know this is happening to you. You constantly feel confused after interactions with this person. You rehearse conversations in your head, trying to figure out what went wrong. You have evidence, texts, witnesses, facts, but you still doubt yourself. You feel the need to record interactions or take screenshots just to prove to yourself that you're not crazy, that feeling. That's your survival instinct screaming. Your nervous system knows something wrong even when your conscious mind has been convinced otherwise. The knot in your stomach isn't anxiety, it's warning. The exhaustion after talking to them isn't just tiredness. It's the cost of maintaining two competing realities in your head simultaneously. You can't fix this person. You can't make them stop. You can't explain it clearly enough or present enough evidence because this isn't about truth. It's about power. When someone refuses to acknowledge your reality, they're refusing to acknowledge your autonomy. They're treating your mind like a plaything. They're communicating something very clear. My comfort matters more than your sanity. The solution isn't to get better at arguing. It isn't to collect more proof. It isn't to explain yourself more clearly. The solution is to stop participating in a relationship where you have to defend your own perception of events. The solution is to trust yourself more than you trust their denial. The solution is to understand that people who love you don't make you question whether you are losing your mind. If you're constantly wondering if you're the problem, you're not. The problem is the person making you wonder. Some people live in a permanent state of catastrophe, not because life is uniquely cruel to them, not because they have worse luck than everyone else, but because calm feels like death to them. Watch closely. Every day brings a new crisis. Every interaction becomes a conflict. Every minor inconvenience transforms into a disaster that requires your immediate attention and emotional labor. And if you read to suggest that maybe things aren't as apocalyptic as they claim you. Become the villain. This is strategic, not accidental. Crisis creates urgency. Urgency demands attention. Attention feels like importance. And for people who are terrified of being ignored, constant emergency is the only way they know how to matter. Here's what you need to understand. These people aren't asking for help. They're performing chaos. Real problems have solutions. But have you noticed? No matter what you suggest, nothing works. No matter what advice you give, the situation somehow gets worse. No matter how much time you invest, the crisis never actually resolves. That's because resolution isn't the goal. Your involvement is. They've learned that catastrophe is currency. As long as they're in crisis, you stay engaged, you check in, you worry, you drop everything to help. The moment things stabilize, they lose your attention. So things never stabilize. This creates a specific psychological trap for you. You start to believe you're essential to their survival. You think if you just help them one more time, if you just say the right thing, if you just care enough, they'll finally find peace. You're wrong. You're not helping them. You're enabling a pattern that serves them perfectly. Every time you absorb their crisis, they download their anxiety into you and walk away lighter. You carry their stress. You lose sleep over their drama. You cancel your plans to manage their emergency. And they move N to create tomorrow's disaster while you're still recovering. From yesterday's, the damage this does to you is insidious. You become hypervigilant, always waiting for the next bomb to drop. Your nervous system never gets to rest because you're constantly on call for someone else's emotional fires. You start to feel guilty when you're happy because you know they're suffering. You begin to shrink your own joy to make space for their endless misery. And here's the cruelest part. They don't actually want you to fix it. If you fix it, the game ends. What they want is an audience for their suffering. What they need is someone who will validate that their life is uniquely difficult, that they are a victim, that none of this is their fault. You think you're being a good friend. You're actually being a supporting actor in a show that will never end. Look at the pattern. After you help them, do things get better? Or does the same situation repeat with different details? Do they take your advice? Or do they explain why every solution won't work? When you're going through something difficult, do they show up for you with the same intensity? The answers will show you the truth. Real people in genuine crisis move through it. They have bad weeks, bad months even, but then they recover. They learn. They apply the support you gave them. They remember when you helped, and they reciprocate. They don't need you to validate their suffering. They need you to help them end it. Crisis addicts do the opposite. They collect tragedies like souvenirs. They romanticize their struggles. They wear their wounds like credentials. And they need you to witness every second of it because your attention is the only thing that makes them feel real. You're not responsible for their emotional stability. You're not required to sacrifice your peace to manage their chaos. You're not a bad person for refusing to drown alongside someone who keeps jumping into deep war. Some people don't want to be saved. They want company in the darkness. And you have to decide, are you going to keep showing up for disasters you didn't cause and can't solve? Or are you going to protect the calm you've worked so hard to build? Your peace is not selfish. It's survival. The knife that cuts deepest comes from the hand you trusted. Betrayal from an enemy makes sense. You expected nothing. You got nothing. The transaction is honest, but betrayal from someone who claimed to be on your side, that's a different kind of damage. That reaches places you didn't know could hurt. Here's how this works. Someone positions themselves as safe. They say the right words. They perform loyalty. They create the illusion of alliance. You believe them because humans are wired to trust patterns and everything they're showing you says friend. So you open up. You share things you don't share with anyone else. You expose vulnerabilities. You let them see the parts of you that need protecting. And for a while, nothing happens. The trust T seems validated. You feel relief that you finally found someone who gets it. Then you discover the truth. Your secrets aren't secret anymore. Your private struggles have become public entertainment. The things you shared in confidence are now being used against you, twisted into jokes, weaponized. In arguments you didn't know were happening, the betrayal isn't just that they told. It's that they pretended to care while they were preparing to violate you. This is intimate warfare. They didn't just break trust, they manufactured it specifically so they'd have something to break. Some people collect vulnerabilities the way others collect weapons. They ask you to share not because they care, but because information is power and they're always looking to increase their arsenal. The psychological impact of this is profound. You don't just lose a friend. You lose your ability to identify safety. Your threat detection system gets scrambled. Everyone becomes suspect. Every kind gesture feels like a setup. You build walls so high that genuine connection becomes impossible because you can't risk being wrong about someone again. This is exactly what proximity poison does. It doesn't just damage the relationship. It damages your capacity for future relationships and the person who did this. They often don't even understand what they destroyed. To them, it was just gossip. Just a funny story. Just sharing information with other people who needed to know. They minimize your pain because acknowledging what they did would require them to face what they are here. That's what you need to recognize. Fake loyalty looks exactly like real loyalty on the surface. The difference only shows up under pressure. Real friends protect you when you're not in the room. Fake friends perform protection when you are in the room, then dissect you the moment you leave. Real friends feel uncomfortable when they know your secrets, burdened by the responsibility of keeping them safe. Fake friends feel powerful when they know your secrets, excited by the social currency they now possess. Real friends prove themselves through silence, the things they could have said but didn't. Fake friends prove themselves through noise, the things they definitely shouldn't have said but did anyway. You can't detect this in advance. That's what makes it so destructive. They don't come with warning labels. They don't announce their intentions. Some of them don't even realize they're doing it until the damage is done. They just operate from a value system where connection is transactional and loyalty is conditional. The survival strategy here isn't paranoia. It's calibration. Pay attention to how people talk about others when those people aren't present. If they're gossiping about everyone else, they're gossiping about you too. If they're sharing other people's business, they're sharing yours. If they get animated and energized when discussing someone else's downfall, understand you're next. Watch how they NDL information that isn't theirs to share. Watch how they respond when they know something private about someone else. Watch whether they can hold silence or if every secret burns a hole in them until they release it. The hardest truth, you have to let some people prove their dangers before you fully trust them. That means giving less at first, testing their discretion with smaller vulnerabilities before risking the bigger ones. It means accepting that not everyone deserves access to all of you. Proximity creates the illusion of safety, but closeness without integrity is just their positioning for betrayal. Guard yourself accordingly. Energy is a finite resource that most people treat like it's infinite. You wake up with a certain amount. Every decision, every interaction, every emotional demand withdraws from that account. Some activities deposit energy back. But most people are walking ATMs programmed to dispense without ever checking the balance. And some people know this. They've learned that your energy is available and they've decided to make you their personal power source. Watch the transaction. They show up drained, anxious, spiraling. You listen, you counsel, you absorb their emotional debris. They leave feeling lighter. You're left feeling like you just worked a double shift. They didn't solve anything. You didn't fix anything, but somehow you're the one who's exhausted. This isn't friendship. It's extraction. Here's the mechanism. Certain people have learned they can regulate their nervous system by dysregulating yours. They dump their anxiety onto you. And the act of verbalizing it, of making you hold it with them, temporarily relieves their internal pressure. You've become their emotional dialysis machine. And the worst part, you probably think this is what caring looks like. It's not. Caring has reciprocity. Caring has boundaries. Caring doesn't leave one person consistently emptied while the other stays full. What you're experiencing is exploitation dressed up as need. These people aren't malicious necessarily. They're just operating from a simple equation. When I feel bad, talking to you makes me feel better. So when I feel bad, I go to you. Every time, for everything. forever. Your exhaustion is their relief. Your depletion is their restoration. You're not in a relationship with them. You're providing a service. Pay attention to the pattern. Do they ask how you're doing? Or do they launch into their problems immediately? When you share your struggles, do they engage with the same intensity? Or do they wait for you to finish so they can redirect to themselves? When was the last time you hung up the phone feeling energized by the interaction? If you can't remember, you have your answer. The danger here is cumulative. One conversation doesn't destroy you, but 6 months of being someone's emotional landfill, a year of having your peace interrupted by someone else's perpetual crisis, that changes you at a cellular level. You become irritable. You become resentful. You start avoiding your phone. You feel guilty for wanting space. You develop anxiety around their name appearing on your screen. And through it all, they keep taking because you keep giving. Here's what you need to understand. Their inability to regulate their own emotions is not your responsibility. Their refusal to seek actual help is not your problem to solve. Their dependency on you is not a compliment. It's a burden you never agreed to carry. And the brutal truth, you're not actually helping them. You're enabling them to avoid doing the hard work of developing their own coping mechanisms. Every time you absorb their distress, you remove their need to learn how to process it themselves. You think you're being supportive. You're actually being an obstacle to their growth. Real support helps someone build capacity. What you're doing is letting them borrow yours indefinitely until you have none left. Some people are black holes. No matter how much energy you pour in, it's never enough. They will take and take and take because you keep giving and giving and giving. They don't see you as a person with limits. They see you as a resource to be consumed. You have to make a choice, protect your energy or keep bleeding it out for people who will never appreciate what it costs you. This means saying no. This means I can't talk right now. This means I'm not equipped to help with this. This means letting someone sit with their overload. End discomfort instead of constantly rescuing them from it. Your energy is your life force. When it's gone, you're gone. You can't work. You can't create. You can't show up for the people who actually matter. You can't be present for your own life because you're too busy managing everyone else's. Some people deserve your energy. Most don't. Learn the difference before there's nothing left to give. You think letting go of. Toxic people makes you cold, wrong. Knowing when to walk away makes you conscious. Here's what they never tell you about healing. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is remove yourself from people who require you to be smaller. Sometimes growth looks like loss. Sometimes peace costs you relationships you thought were permanent. You're not abandoning anyone. You're returning to yourself. Every person you remove who was draining you creates space for someone who won't. Every boundary you enforce teaches you that your comfort matters. Every time you choose yourself over someone else's dysfunction, you're making a statement about what you're willing to tolerate. The people who are meant to stay will respect that. The ones who aren't will call you selfish, cold, different. Let them. You're not here to be everyone's emotional support system. You're not here to be slowly consumed by people who mistake your capacity for caring with permission to drain you empty. You're not here to prove your loyalty by accepting mistreatment. You're here to build a life that doesn't require constant recovery from the people in it. That life starts the moment you realize you don't owe anyone access to you, not your energy, not your peace, not your reality, not your future. Some doors need to close so you can finally breathe. Close them.